Awesome. Wait,
Good as in,
I think we can start.
is the video on? Oh, shoot.
Forgive us, we're new at this.
Hi. Oh my gosh, guys. Oh, wow. Hey, guys. By the way, hi, I'm John.
Oh, I'm Maria Arnold. Hello.
And welcome to our Thursday night streams. Woo. Actually, you know what? It's fine. Yeah, there's no crowd here. First off, thank you guys so much for coming through. Like, it really means a lot. But yeah, who are we? We are going to be your SCMs for 2020 to 2021. Maria, what's an SCM?
Oh, it's short for Student Campus Minister, and he can tell you more about that.
Yeah, so we are going to be your representatives this year for us, the Catholic Patriots. Basically, that means we're going to be working with staff, with the leadership team, and most importantly, we're here working for you guys. We're here to serve. And that means we also have office hours that are up now. Lori, do you have that? Is that up? Oh, shoot. Anyway, we'll post more about that later. But yeah, shoot.
Yes, if you want to reach us, there's going to be a graphic posted out later. Just make sure to follow all the social medias. You're already on the YouTube channel, so you're doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah, so before we begin our stream, we just have a couple of announcements. So, now that we're back in the school year, we also have our new Sunday Masses times, and also our daily Mass times. So, for the weekend, we have Saturdays for 5:30. We'll have our Masses. For Sundays, we'll have 3 Mass times at 11 a.m., 7 p.m., and 9 p.m. And be sure to sign up for these times. You can do that at the website, gmuccm.com? .org? Perfect. And then also, for our daily Mass times, we have confessions and adoration from 11 a.m. to 11:45, followed by Mass at 12 p.m. for Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But for Tuesday, we have confession and adoration at 4, followed by Mass at 5. And then announcements for Compline?
Yes. All right, bear with me. I'm a little bit short. So, sorry, I'm imagining how many people are actually like laughing at their computer screens because they saw me get up and like elevate like 5 inches. So anyways, all right, so we have a very lovely prayer formation opportunity for you all, virtually especially. So we have our community complines today, every Thursday at 9 p.m. There's also going to be a graphic posted as well. I'm sorry, I can't remember numbers like that. Not a math major, so forgive me. But yes, tonight, virtually, 9 p.m. See you there, maybe, or next week. All right, so John's going to come back on the screen. I'm going to just dip for a little bit.
I don't know why we're doing this back and forth. You know what? Okay, so you might be asking, hey, John, TNS, what does that mean? Like I said, it's going to be our Thursday night streams. So we're doing things a little bit differently this year. But what's great is we still have a wide selection of speakers this semester just for you guys. So Thursday night streams, it's going to be a virtual weekly speaker series where we are going to be tackling a range of topics, from social justice, from being known and loved, and also just and human sexuality. Like, we have everything just for you guys. So this is run by our amazing TLTs, Jenny Ponce and Nicole Fetterman. So say woo in the chat. I don't know. Are emotes in the chat? You know what I mean. So, but another cool thing about our TNSs this year, if you miss out or want to go back to your favorite talks, feel free, because these will all be recorded and will be up in the YouTube channel. So also feel free to hit subscribe, and share your favorite videos. So yeah, Marie, would you like to introduce our first talker for this series?
If I said no, would you do it?
No.
That's funny. All right, so to kick off kick off this TNS series, we have our very own, wonderfully made, wonderfully created by our very gorgeous Lord, Father. Sorry, I just saw Father Farrell's face and it was like, oh, that's a lot. All right, so we have a new chaplain. His name is Father Farrell. So I'm just going to have him come up here, introduce himself to the community. He's a very lovely man, very humble, and also cracks a lot of jokes. So if you like knee slappers, he got them. So welcome, Father Farrell.
Hello, Mason. Let me move the step stool out of the way. Don't need that. This is a very weird talk for me. I kind of imagined that I would be, in a room full of people all having delicious dinner, and instead we're all sort of doing our own thing, and I'm talking to a camera. But I try to keep the energy up. I've got like 7 very energetic people here, and I'll do my best. So tonight, what I wanted to do was share a topic that I'm very familiar with, sort of myself. And the way I want to do that is not just as a way to talk about myself and give you the history of me, but rather to share something of myself. One of the most important things about being together in this campus ministry is that we're sort of journeying together. Life is seen as sort of like a road. So we're walking along a road together from time into eternity. And along that road, we have certain people that walk with us for a stretch of that road. And it's my privilege to be able to walk with all of you during these formative years of college. They're important for any of us. And as you hear, my college years weren't always what they were meant to be, and I learned a lot, and I want to be able to walk with you. And it's not about me exclusively in that way. It's an invitation to know more about you as well. So I hope you hear something about me, about my experience, and then you feel comfortable talking to me and introducing yourselves to me. I see being a chaplain in like 2 ways. One is that for any pastor or priest that's sent out to a place, it's a fatherly role. So there's the idea of providing for the family. And that's really, I think, seen most clearly in the sacraments. That's where you provide the sacraments, Christ himself, for the family. And it's the only perfect thing that I do because it's not my work, it's Christ's work through me. And so that's an important thing to understand is that, everything that we do is tinged with our own imperfections except when we do the work of God. And that's why that's the fatherly role. But I also see myself as an older brother in the faith. Somebody who, from my own experiences, my own education in the faith that was provided by the diocese, by my study of what our real older brothers and sisters in the faith have done in the saints, can help you perhaps to do something a little closer to God on this path of life. And we can work together on that. That's not going to be perfect. That's going to be me trying to help you. I don't have all the answers. There's only one true answer for everything. That's Christ. So the more I can get you to walk closer with Christ, the more answers you're going to find. And the great thing is that while walking with you or walking in the same direction, you're also helping me to grow closer to Christ. Because I grow closer to Christ through this, my ministry. So I really appreciate that opportunity that I have. I thought I'd share a little bit first about just my background. I had a great life growing up. My dad was a career officer in the Coast Guard, so we moved all over the country, not as much as some of the other services. But I lived in New England, a few different places, in Maryland, down to Louisiana, back up to Virginia. I was very lucky because his last few assignments were all in D.C., so really from my mid-teens up to this point, we've been based out of Fredericksburg. Great town. I go back there whenever I can. And that was my experience of growing up in a strong Catholic family. I had one sister. She's an archaeologist, taught at Longwood University for a while. And now she lives on a farm with her husband, who's a farmer down in North Carolina. And they have 2 little kids. So my little niece and nephew. My niece is also my goddaughter. And from there, I went to college. So that's really where the rubber hit the road. Because first of all, I took off some time before college, and I had a wonderful job. A job really, during that time off, that made other teenagers very jealous of me. I sold casual clothes at JCPenney's. And and I got the discounts too. So I looked like a 45-year-old man, but I got 40% off of everything that I had, so that helped. So anyhow, after that, I went to college, and I went first to a smaller college I didn't care for as much. It just wasn't me. I wanted something much bigger. So I came here to Mason, and I did a whole bunch of different majors. That's why I know I've talked to some of you who have done multiple majors, and you're sort of like, yeah, I can't seem to find my major. Well, I had like 7. And I was very into the arts. I'd been singing opera for a while. So I wanted to do something related to that. I just wasn't very good at a lot of it because I had my own teacher outside of the school, so I didn't want to do music. So I tried acting, terrible. I did film, that was embarrassing. There's a film out there somewhere that I produced that is, I hope it never shows up on YouTube. And don't search for it, I don't even know the title. But anyway, did that for a while. And then from there, I really tried to, I wanted to do writing. So I did creative writing. Terrible idea. My stories were awful. But then finally, I found out I could still read about other people and write about them. So I did literature. And during that time then, it was a great time. I lived here on campus, and I lived in a trailer that was built next to a Motel 6, where our laundry facility was. And that was actually part of the campus. It was outside of the Patriot Circle, which back then was the extreme end of the whole place. And I lived in this double-wide trailer that had been built in 1982 around a Motel 6. It was called Patriots Village. And that is now the PV parking lot. So if you wonder what PV lot stood for, Patriot Village. If anybody calls something you're going to live in a village, you should immediately wonder why. Because they're trying to make something awful sound charming. That Patriot Village was not on any of the tours for prospective students ever. They really just kept us out there. But it actually was pretty good. I had my own room. I had a kitchenette, and I only shared the bathroom with one other guy. We did have mice, but they left us alone. We left them alone. And it was a really great life. I loved living on campus. It was a lot of fun. And from there, I finished my degree. Now, my faith life in college was difficult because I had been a Catholic my whole life. So when it came to making those choices for myself, I wouldn't say that I ever left the faith, but I did get lazy, like really lazy, and stopped going to Mass hardly at all. And I would come back occasionally here to the chapel. So I was here a few times. And that chapel was actually good for me because I never completely left them. I was the kind of student in campus ministry that chaplains like me cannot stand, because I would come in and say, I'm ready to go, Father. I am ready to take my faith seriously. I'm all set. And Father Peter would be like, that's great, Joe. All right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go to confession. We're going to start going to weekday Mass. And I was like, I'm on. And then he wouldn't see me for like 9 weeks. Like, I'd be like, all right, Father, now I'm really ready. And that happened pretty much throughout the whole 4 years. But the one thing about it was Father Peter, who was the chaplain here at the time, was so patient through all that. And so it was something that I remembered when I did end up coming back to the faith. Another issue with going with the faith was that Sunday football takes place all day. And me and my friends, we would watch football in the morning, and that meant I couldn't go, obviously, to that Mass. And then Sunday night football didn't end until 10. So I was almost literally making, not so much even football, I don't even care about that much, but I was making, just hanging out with my friends and watching football, which is a good thing, my God, my idol. And I was leaving God out of it completely. So that was a big part of it. It was just that laziness. And so that's how I went into the working world then. From there I went into young adulthood, and I was still working on opera. And as a side note, I actually don't even like opera at all. You'll never hear me listening to opera in my car or in my house, but I was good at singing it, and so that's what I would do. It was actually a good way to make some extra money and eventually a career, hopefully. And but yeah, I never listened to it. In fact, what I really like is tennis, which I'm terrible at, and I always told God, Lord, if you ever wanted to swap a talent, you give my singing ability to like Andre Agassi and give me his ability to play tennis, that'd be awesome. Doesn't work that way, but anyway. So I was going to do that. I was going to get a job and also sing opera. So my work was doing this networking of CEOs. It was a great job, paid really well. So I got an apartment at a high rise, and I had a nice car, and I was commuting to work on the metro every day. It was the life I wanted, really, but I wasn't even thinking about God at all, not at all. And now I wasn't even like going to Mass occasionally. And I went through probably 2 years where I rarely crossed the threshold of a church. For family things maybe. I knew enough to where I couldn't receive communion, but I wasn't practicing at all. And looking back, very sad. And what ended up happening was I met a girl at a certain point at a wedding, a friend of a friend, and she was a very strong Catholic. And I liked her. And she asked me if I would go to Mass, and I said, oh yeah, I go to Mass. I go to this church, St. Charles, at like the 10:15 a.m., which I was completely making up. And she went to a different church where she taught CCD until one day her CCD class got canceled, religious education. So she said, I'll pick you up, and we'll go to Mass together. And I was just thinking, please, Lord, let there be a 10:15 at that church. And we got there, and there was not. In fact, I think like the Spanish Mass was letting out. And so she was like, so you're not going to Mass? And I was like, no. And so she said, well, you're going to have to go with me every week. And so, okay. So I started going to Mass with her every week. And somehow that sparked something. Just having that person who was saying, you got to go to Mass, sparked something, and I realized what I had been missing out on. I'd been missing out on practicing the one thing that really mattered. So it actually happened very quickly. I think I was just so dried out with life that when the flame came, it just burned everything up, and I was on fire with it. So I started to go to confession, and I went to confession for the first time in like 2 or 3 years, back in my home parish in Fredericksburg, to the pastor there. And he was so kind and so compassionate and inviting to me back into the faith that it just helped things along. And then I started to think, well, maybe I'll go to daily Mass. Half a mile down the road was a place that had daily Mass from where I worked. So I'd walk there every day. So now I was walking a mile every day. I was practicing the faith. I was living this really healthy life. And I realized the reason was because God was involved in it. And from there, I just got really on fire with the faith. I actually was going to go to this Academy of Vocal Arts, which was the jumping off point to really have a full opera career. And instead I said, I can't do that unless I at least give God a chance in the seminary. So I did. I went to the diocese, and they were thrilled to have such a, the man that you see before you walk through their doors. No, not really. But they were happy to see me. And they put me first at St. Charles in Philadelphia. And then from there, I went to Rome for 4 years. First year was hard because just starting anything new without a lot of preparation is difficult. But by the second year, I was pretty sure of what I was doing. And then I went to Rome, and that was great. In Rome, I had the opportunity to serve for the Pope. I served Vespers, evening prayer for Pope Benedict. Got to put the cope on him. And that was cool, but really my relationship was more with Pope Francis, who was there for the majority of my time. I served for him 3 times. In fact, by the 3rd time, I was standing there with all the other servers. I was a deacon at that point, so I was one of his deacons. And he came, and he was greeting each person. He got to me, and he was like, oh, I've seen you before. I was like, yeah, actually twice. Joe Farrell, North American College. I said that in Italian. And he was like, oh, cool, yeah. So that was that. It was very awesome for me because he at least recognized me. I got very nervous about that because you're with the Pope, and I had to chant the gospel in front of him and all these different things like bring him the book to kiss and so on. And one of my stories that I hold on to is that when we do the sign of peace in Rome, you sort of put your hands underneath the other person's elbows, and then they put their hands on your shoulders, and then you do like this ceremonial kiss of peace. There's no actual kissing involved, but you do that. And like when you're having the sign of or the Our Father at Mass and people are holding hands, at the end when you're about to let go of the other person's hands, you often give like a little squeeze or something. It's just natural. It's almost like it's written into the missal. I kind of did that because I finished, and then I like gave his elbows a squeeze, and he gave this look like, oh, and I was like, oh. So I had my awkward moment with the Pope, but I'm one of the only people in this world probably who knows what Pope Francis's elbows feel like. I'll take that secret to my grave. And so, from there, then I had two great assignments. I was at Our Lady of Hope and at St. Tim's. And that brings me to this assignment. And how did I get this assignment? What's my background that they decided, oh, he'll work well at Mason? Not just because I went here, I think, but one of the tricks in the church is that if there's something you don't want to do, don't tell them that you're not comfortable with it, because that's exactly what we end up doing. So when I was in Philadelphia the first year, they asked me, what don't you feel comfortable with? And I said, I don't feel comfortable working with little kids because I didn't have any cousins around me growing up. My sister's close in age to me. I hadn't dealt with little kids since I myself was a little kid. So this would be something completely new. So of course what they did was they put me in a room of second graders that teach religion with no preparation, no help, no aid, just me and like 30 second graders. And I just started seminary. I didn't even know how to teach religion to myself. So that was a trial by fire. Then the next year they made me the representative for the archdiocese for vocations. So every day I was going out to Philadelphia to some different parish and talking to anybody from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. And all day long, every Thursday. And it was intense, and it was everywhere from like wealthy suburbs to like West Philadelphia to everything in between, all different groups of people. And it was wonderful, actually, because I got to know so many different kinds of Catholics who are all part of the same universal church. And that same thing happened when I got to Rome, because they asked me, what aren't you comfortable with? And I'm dense, so I did not figure it out. I said, I'm not that comfortable with teenagers. I got kids down now. I can do grown-ups, but teenagers I've never done anything with. And they put me in charge of the World Youth Day site as the seminarian who was helping with that. So that was bringing in busloads of teenagers 1 week after another. They come off the bus, and they're from all over the world. If you're lucky, some of them speak English or Italian, but they were from every continent, so there were no guarantees. You had to wrangle them all up, get them into St. Peter's Square or some other square, and you'd have like bongo drums and guitars, and you would just be playing praise and worship music with a big cross behind you. And then when people come by, you're like, hey, do you see the cross and the bongo drums? Come on over. It was no preparation for it. It just happened. And very spontaneous. But it was wonderful. Again, I played that drum that you sit on. I was decent at it. And the kids were amazing because they were, again, from all over the world. I mean, we would have a bus one time from just, up the street in Italy. And then the next week it would be a group from the Sudan. And you got a chance to see how universal our church really is. It's like every race, every ethnicity, every economic situation. And it was beautiful to see because they were all part of our same family. So that was a wonderful experience. And then they put me into college ministry because Christendom College has a Rome program, and so they asked me to help run that. So I did the whole gamut. Then the first two parishes I was in both needed a youth minister and somebody to start a young adults group, and I did that at both parishes. So that became sort of the whole thrust of my ministry, and it's become something that's been very life-giving for me. So I'm thrilled to be here because my whole background since I joined the seminary has been putting me in this direction where I can work full-time with college students. So those are my assignments. That's my background. A lot of people would look at that and say, from their college years, I don't know. Father Farrell seems to be doing okay, and he left the faith during college. Why can't I just come back later? And that's always one of the fears I have when I talk about my background. But I want to give two reasons that's a terrible idea. Yeah. One is we don't know the day or the hour. One of my good friends in college was killed in a car wreck while I was there. So not to be morbid, but we just always had to be ready, right? I mean, you just never know. So that when he passed, that really hit me as being like, well, that could have just as easily have been me. And would I be ready to meet the Lord? So there's that. But that's more out of fear. That's not the real reason we want to practice the faith, but it should be in the back of our mind. we always should be ready to meet the Lord. The other reason is because there's so many regrets that I have in college. When I look at the regrets I have in college, they're mostly related to my not practicing the faith. It's about the way I treated people, the way I would use people, the way I was utilitarian about the way I went about things, my priorities, everything that I regret about my college years, as good as they were and as much fun as I had, they're all related to my not practicing the faith. And if I had been practicing the faith, I could have had a much more life-giving experience in college. The other reason is because we're meant to evangelize. And we can't do that if we're not practicing the faith ourselves. And there were so many people that God put in my life that I should have been drawing closer to Christ. And I'll give one example that's always stuck into my head. I remember it was like junior year probably. I was at a house party, I think. And I was talking with this girl, and she was telling me, I'm Catholic. She didn't even know I was Catholic. I'm Catholic, and I keep going to Mass because I feel guilty if I don't, but it's just so boring, and I wish I didn't have to do that. And what I should have said was, let's go to Mass together, and let's also join a Bible study at the CCM, and that'll give us a context for enjoying Mass, and we'll be around our friends, and we can start to really grow in the faith. What did I say, the future Father Farrell? I'm Catholic, and I never go to Mass. And actually, I feel great, which I didn't. So you should just not worry about it. And she's like, okay. Now, long afterwards, when I came back to the faith, I would always wonder about that girl, and I prayed for her a lot. I offered sacrifices because I felt like that's one where I'm going to answer to God. And there are probably others like that. That's the one that sticks in my head. But God gave me a gift because I think all those prayers and everything that I said for her, eventually, this is only a year and a half ago, I randomly was at some party at a church, not a house party this time, and I saw this girl who I've not seen since college. So it had been literally 15 years. And I went up and I was like, hey, and we got to talking. I was like, do you know this girl? We'll call her Leslie. Do you know Leslie? Did you stay in touch with her? And she's like, yeah, actually I do. And I was like, is she practicing the faith? I know it's a weird question, but I'm just wondering. And she said, well, she wasn't for a while, but the last few years she became a Catholic school teacher and she goes to daily Mass now. So I was like, thank God. Okay. Because that was always a worry of mine. Like, who are the people that God put in my path as a baptized and confirmed Christian to impact that I didn't? And that's got to be a question that we're all asking. The evangelization that we do together is what we're called to. We're called to evangelize campuses. And, there's so many kids out there that are fallen away Catholics already. And that's where I need all of your help, because I'm not going to be able to reach them as a priest as easily as you are as a fellow student. So when you hear somebody saying, oh yeah, I was raised Catholic, that's automatically a thing like raised but not practicing. When you hear stuff like that, to reach out to that person, to invite them, either to Mass or to, we're not doing too much, but whatever it is that we are doing, find out something that we're doing, or just bring them in to meet your friends here at CCM. That would be huge. So if we do that, we can begin to evangelize the campus. And also, I'll feel like I'm making up for people I didn't evangelize when I was here before. It's like a second chance for me. So I invite you all to do that with me. And together we can evangelize this whole campus. And that's really what God's calling us to. So guys, ultimately, I wanted to share something of myself tonight. But I also want this to be an invitation to each one of you. I want this to be an invitation for you to join me, and also to get to know me and let me get to know you. There's nothing I like better than when a student drops in on my office and just wants to tell me something about what's going on in their life, or wants to tell me, how they're doing or what their background is. I welcome that. And that's always my priority. You're never going to be a bother to me, and you're never an inconvenience. That's what really is life-giving to me, is to sit down and talk to students about what's going on. And if you have something where you are trying to evangelize somebody, or somebody that you're trying to bring back to the faith, come and talk to me. I've been on both sides of the tracks on that, and I'm happy to help in whatever way I can to nurture that. Because ultimately, we're walking down the road together. We're walking from time into eternity. And we don't know how long we'll be walking together, but we know that if we walk in the same direction, if we get to heaven, we'll be with each other for all eternity. There's no COVID in heaven, so we can actually have events. So if we come together and we just keep walking down the road, and we go in the same direction to heaven, nothing else matters. That's the most important thing in our lives. And I just want to encourage you to, walk together, to talk together, and ultimately to get to the kingdom of heaven. Thanks. So if there's any questions or comments out there.
Our first question is from James Smith.
Oh, a seminarian James. Nice.
Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself as a first-year seminarian?
Oh, great question. Just to not get overwhelmed. I mean, to just take it a day at a time, because seminary is so different than anything else you've experienced. So don't expect to have it all figured out day one. You just gotta each day wake up, rededicate yourself to the Lord, and see what happens. And then to take seriously the advice that you're getting from formation faculty, because they're really there to help you. And sometimes it can seem that they're criticizing us and we get defensive, but if you just open your heart to what they're trying to tell you, even if they're not correct, because they're not perfect, they might tell you something that is not helpful to you, but to have that humility, that's huge. Wonderful.
Thank you. We have another question.
I'll repeat the question, yeah.
Okay, yeah. From Cameron Stryker, favorite polyphony/chant piece. Also, will you sing it with the CCM choir?
That's right. Favorite polyphony or chant piece, and will I sing it in the choir? Although Kenny says I have to audition, so I don't know. I might get kicked out. Polyphony, I like the work of Palestrina. I love his masses. I think they're great. To be honest, I'm not one that listens to a lot of polyphony, so I like it. I love it in the liturgy, so I'm not like somebody who can nerd out on what my favorite polyphony is. I'm sorry. But I do like it, and I love listening to it. I love Palestrina. I love Vittoria. I love, I never know how to pronounce his name, like Johann Desprez, something like that. It's all great stuff, yes.
John Moore is wondering, what's a lesson learned from mistakes made in college?
Great, yeah. A big one is just to set yourself up for success when you get to college. My problem when I got to college is my entire group of friends was based upon like the first 3 parties I went to when I got here. So that was terrible because none of them were practicing the faith. I always tell students when they're leaving for college, it's important in college to have lots of different friends. Your friends do not all have to be practicing Catholics, and they don't have to be even, practicing Christians. I had lots of friends from different backgrounds, and I could have kept all of them, but I should have also gotten engaged here to get good relationships with people that were going to hold me responsible for my faith. So if you get to college and you don't have anybody who's living the faith with you, those are friends worth getting, because ultimately we do things as a community in college. I mean, community is the name of the game in college, because you have your clubs, you have your groups of friends, you have your fraternities and sororities. All of this is important, but you also need your friends who are going to help you to grow in the faith. And those turn out to be the deepest friendships. My friendships that have lasted, I can honestly say I don't really have any friends that I've kept from my time at Georgia. So I'm not getting emotional. I don't have any friends I kept. I'm not getting emotional. I don't have any friends that I kept from George Mason because we didn't have anything really deep in common. We just enjoyed each other's company, which is great. I mean, those are great friends to have in the moment. But the ones that I kept are friends from elsewhere that we share the faith, because that's what's really important to me. And that should be important to all of us. And that's something that's life-giving throughout an entire life. Because right now, I'm not really into most of the things I was into. Like, I'm not boxing anymore, which I did when I was here. And those were so I had my friends that boxed. Those aren't my friends anymore because I don't do that because I don't want a concussion.
Maurice is wondering, what is a good way to talk to friends who have left the faith after other Catholics were unkind to them, or who have doubts about church teachings?
Great. Well, I'd say those are two different things. One is we always have to point people back to Christ. Because if we base our faith on the followers of Jesus, including his apostles, there's going to be always imperfections there. And Catholics, like anyone else, can be mean, can be petty, can be difficult to live with, and so we can't really. We got to show them that Christ is who we're following, not the people that were cruel to them. And then we have to provide that alternate example. We have to be the ones who are good to them, who are kind, and listen carefully. And, sorry, I keep forgetting to repeat the questions. That question was, what do you do when somebody has been mean to a person? That's why they left the faith. Somebody has been cruel to them, who is answer.
Awesome, thank you. Is this working? Okay.
I can keep it, and I'll remember to repeat it, though.
Okay.
So.
All right, so the next question is from... No. Okay, that's okay. Well, it's from Pedro Lopez. How many languages do you speak?
So Pedro Lopez asks, how many languages do I speak? Just one, English. I do speak Italian, but it's probably like talking to like a preschooler, and not like a 4-year-old preschooler, like a 3-year-old preschooler, where you're able to get across basic concepts. That's about it. But I have been working on my Italian, so it's getting a little bit better, back to where it was. But just English, really. I wouldn't feel comfortable like giving a talk in any other language.
Wonderful. Okay. James Smith also wondering, where's Father Buddy? And can you explain
Oh, sure, yes. Father Buddy is our assistant chaplain, and I did not make this thing. I had a My Buddy doll when I was like 3, and I let this slip at one point at a staff party at my last parish, and so somebody on eBay bought this Father Buddy doll, which some kid gave a terrible haircut to, and then another lady in the parish made this cassock. And then I was going to leave it there with them, but they snuck it into a box. And then Maria, the secretary here, found it. And the rest is history. Oh, that was a terrible throw.
Oh my gosh!
He's fine. He's fine.
Tony Exley is wondering, what's your favorite Christmas carol?
What's my favorite Christmas carol? I like In the Bleak Midwinter, which sounds kind of bleak, but it is. I really think that's just a beautiful hymn. I also like I Saw Three Ships. I like more traditional stuff, but I also like Home for the Holidays. I think that's a nice one. So that one makes me feel like I'm excited to go home.
Yes. Okay, Jonathan Miller says, Father, what's your favorite Disney movie?
Oh, what's my favorite Disney movie? Well, I'm not one that kept up with Disney movies as I got older, but I can remember as a kid, I really liked Beauty and the Beast. I thought that was very exciting. Kind of dark.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought it was real. I think that's a normal one to like.
Okay, I guess kind of along those same lines, Sarita wants to ask you, what in general is your favorite movie?
Oh, gosh. I like so many movies. My favorite movie, though, of all time. I mean, I really like the Wes Anderson movies, like Life Aquatic. I love Royal Tenenbaums. I like, I'm going to kick myself for the movies I don't mention once I get back to my house and I see my collection. But those. I love all the Jason Bourne movies. I love, what I've been watching lately is Ip Man. It's a Chinese movie about Kung Fu. That's really good. I'm not into Kung Fu, but it is so amazing to watch what he does. I really like it. So that's been one too. But yeah, the Bourne movies. I like the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. I think those are very good. In fact, Spectre was being filmed in Rome when I was there. So we saw like the exotic car chases down by the Tiber River. And they superimposed using CGI, a different building on my seminary, and that was Spectre headquarters, which is like where the evil people were. So we thought that was a good joke. Yeah.
Charles Gilbertson is wondering, who is your favorite saint, and why? And I'm just gonna add a little asterisk to this. What saint do you find yourself praying to the most?
Oh, great. All right, so who's my favorite saint and why, and who do I find myself praying to the most? I mean, that's hard because I have so many favorite saints. I love Saint Therese because she's so different from me, but she was one that I read her spiritual biography, and that's part of what convinced me to stay in the seminary. So I read it, and I thought it was phenomenal. It was, and because she was so different than me, that it actually helped me a lot to figure out those areas of my spirituality that were not developed enough. So I've always had a deep devotion to her. I love St. Joseph, my namesake. I like St. Paul. I like Padre Pio a lot. Solanus Casey. Yeah, I mean, you name it. There's a whole bunch that I could go through, but those are some of my favorites. And then as far as what saint I find myself praying to the most, it really depends on the situation. The most, definitely the Blessed Mother, because I pray the Rosary every day, and I do ask for intercession constantly. And I should have added her to my favorite saint list, but she's sort of a given above all that. And then, but a lot of times if there's like students that are having issues, or especially when I was doing a lot of youth ministry, I found myself praying to St. Don Bosco a lot, because patron saint of youth. So it really depends on the situation. Whatever the situation is, there's a saint for that. If it's like something I need something really big, I often go to Padre Pio, because I think he's just an amazing saint. So it really depends on the situation. But yeah, those are some of the big ones.
Awesome, thank you. And Marie Tessier is wondering, how many languages do you sing?
Oh, how many languages do I sing? So that's different from speaking, because we can take diction classes. So I sing, I used to sing anyway in Italian, English, French. German wasn't great, but I could do it if they were paying enough. And those are the main ones. I don't think I never really, I don't think I sang any other languages. Yeah, that was it.
Cool. And we have some ladies wondering, namely Christina, Jane, Allie, Destiny, Natalie, and Grace. Where can we find the movie that you made?
I have no idea, and if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. I think they deleted it. I hope they did.
And this will be the last question. What is your favorite book of the Bible and why?
Oh, great question. My favorite book of the Bible is probably Acts of the Apostles. I love the story of the early church. I also, I think that would be it, the Acts of the Apostles. I mean, I love the Gospel of Luke as well, because it has the totality of Christ's life. And I think that's wonderful. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone out there. Sorry, I was also supposed to tell you about next week's live stream. We have my good friend Deacon Gerard Anthony who's going to come, and he's going to talk to us about the Catholic response to racial injustice, which is, of course, very timely and very important right now. And he's a phenomenal deacon at my previous parish, and it'll be a great talk. So I really encourage you to tune in next Thursday, 7 p.m. We'll be checking social media for that. Thanks.
Yes, we're done.